When we hear the word hood, we often think of a person, a place, and even a thing. Welcome to Muhlenberg County Ghost Stories from the Hood, narrated by the one and only Sir Creepsta. Tonight's tale of terror was shared with me by a friend and is entitled The Bleeding Walls. True terror can come in many forms. It doesn't always have to be in the form of ghosts or spirits. There are times that just the mere sight of something strange and out of place can inflict the same amount of fear within oneself. It was told to me that on a very stormy night, a friend of mine had been hanging at the dog pound, shooting some pool and enjoying a few drinks. This was a routine that he said he'd done on a weekly basis, especially on paydays, which happened to fall on a Friday. He said he would generally only spend a couple of hours at the dog pound. Then he would have one last drink for the road before heading home. On this particular night, the rain didn't seem to want to slack up at all. So after being there for over 2 hours longer, he decided just to tough it out and make a run for it, since there was no one there at the time other than the owner of the pound that had a car that could give him a ride home. It wasn't quite midnight yet, which is usually the time the dog pound was shut down. So he said he had no choice but to strike out running, and that's just exactly what he did. But when he stepped out of the dog pound, he noticed that there was a train running down the tracks that he would generally take, causing him to have to take an alternate route, one that would come to regret for the rest of the remaining parts of his life. Once leaving the pound running, he went through the park, jumped the ditch, and ran behind the projects by the park. And he didn't come to a complete stop, he said, until he got to the top of the hill by the old colored school. But to his surprise, instead of the rain stopping or slacking up, it only intensified, forcing him to have to take cover in the small beige brick building located beside the colored school's gymnasium. The building had been long abandoned, so therefore the doors of the building weren't locked. According to him, he said he grabbed the handle of the door and jumped inside just to keep from getting completely drenched by the rain. Once inside a dark abandoned building, he said he stopped for a moment just to gather his breath. And after catching his breath, he thought that, hey, since I was in this dry place, why not get me a quick smoke in before heading to the rest of the way home? So he felt inside his pocket for his lighter. He started to notice a strange odor in the air, one that he wasn't accustomed to. But pushing past the smell aside for the taste of that cigarette, he took his lighter out of his pocket and proceeded to light it. Once the lighter flicked, the entire room became illuminated. It was then that he said his heart nearly stopped beating, just from pure fear. What he said he saw was something out of the darkest horror movies he had ever seen in his life. For to his surprise, he noticed that on all the walls around him were dripping of what appeared to be blood. He didn't know what to think at this point, other than he knew he had to get his butt out of there ASAP. And that's exactly what he told me he did. Reaching his home in record-breaking time, he told me that he ran to the bathroom, looking in the mirror, trying to gather himself. But he would soon make the discovery of a lifetime. For once he glanced down at his feet, to his surprise, not only were the walls in the building that he had just left from bleeding, so were the floors, because he would see that his shoes were covered in what appeared to be blood as well, and that his bloody footprints would lead from the front door all the way to the bathroom. And at that moment, he made a promise to himself that he would never again in life stepped foot inside that building. He would later find out that many people had experienced the same bloody ordeal, and if they had in fact labeled the building with the walls that bleeds when it rains. He also found out the building itself had been built on an old Indian burial ground, and that the blood that was on the walls of the building was that of the dead that died many years before. Today, that building still stands, and for those who are brave enough to dare go inside of its domain, feel free to do so, especially on a rainy night. And you too may be terrorized and scarred for the rest of your life, just from pure fear. Stay tuned next week for another terrifying tale from Sir Creepsta. And until then, stay terrified to the bone. It's better.